All right.
Thank you very much.
Topic number 3. I cannot wait to see what happens with this one with Colin. Are eSports sports? This has been a big topic of discussion recently in video games because on ESPN they showed some eSports stuff.
What did they show?
Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, Heroes of the Storm. Yeah, there you go. And it was at UC Berkeley versus someone
Some
else.
other
It was called Heroes of the Dorm, I believe.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, like what they did there.
I love that a lot.
Smart.
But yeah, so really what I want to know is, are esports sports? And why does this upset so many people? I saw there was some ESPN dude, and he's like talking mad shit. You know what happens to people that talk shit? They get shot. He didn't get shot yet, but he was like just being like,
If he gets shot, the police are gonna be rat-tat-tat.
I mean, like, no, it's a body count song.
You got your
song.
internet fans to do it, didn't you?
But yeah, so some dude that's high up at ESPN, if I
Colin Cowherd.
yes, Colin Cowherd.
Yeah. Cowherd. He's been doing this
Okay.
stuff for a long time.
That's a shitty name.
He likes to start.
So he comes out and he's just like, you know, if ESPN turns into, like, if we're gonna cover video games, I'm fucking out. Fuck this shit. I don't want to work with this. And it's just like, wow.
I was okay with it when it was Donkey Kong, but
Yeah, well, no, even then.
No, he
didn't say
tolerated
No, that's
it.
what he said.
that.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
said-
yeah.
He said,
Well, no,
I
he
tolerated
tolerated
it.
He wasn't okay with it.
We all did.
I know we all back in 1982 we all
Good
all
tolerated.
you
Lord.
kids doing the Mario, get out of here.
Yeah. And so then we see the internet get kind of split, and I feel like the majority of people are kind of saying fuck him, whether or not they care about video games or care about esports or any of that. They're just more just like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're not connected with our generation. Be positive and don't talk shit, right? Because that's what people like doing. It's, you know, the Facebook trending thing of the day. I'm like, oh, someone's saying something that sounds mean. Fuck you. But then there's the other side. I'm assuming Colin's side. They're just like, well, they're not sports. He's right. You know, and whether or not he's right, but just
That's
that
the
they're
thing,
not
is
sports.
that there's a big, huge gap there, right? This is something we talked about extensively on Colin and Greg Live, and the fact that whether you want to say sports, it's a sport or not, right? It's this choice of how you're framing it, right? For this guy to come out on ESPN and be, you know, be an ESPN reporter talking shit now about ESPN and video games in general, and going after all these fans that he doesn't understand, this thing he doesn't get. That's where like there's a giant gap to jump from between. There's two questions: is, you know, how big of a dick is this guy, and then are esports sports? And that's the whole thing. Is like Colin doesn't think esports are sports, and that's fine. He's presented his case on why he thinks that, right?
I think calling them esports and not like just competitive gaming was like one of the, it could have solved so many fucking discussions. Like I'm totally with you. It's like the idea of them being sports, even, or that there is this area where these are like they're individual games. It's not even like every game is involved in this. They are like individual games that are like a handful, like a half dozen games that are designed in a way that makes them competitive and designed in a way where they can be leveraged into like tournament like structures. So it's not like a sport which will be around for decades. Most of these games are going to peter off and have new versions of them, or like they'll go Counter-Strike back in the day. Like I know there's like a resurgence in Go and whatnot, but like everyone knew that Quake wasn't going to be around in the next 10 years or so. And like that fundamentally changes the person who want to, like, the culture of what that thing is, because it isn't something where people are like, oh, I like watching all of these. Like, there are people who like watching LOL, and they're different people to the people who like watching CS.
Like NBA versus WNBA.
It's like, it's the idea of like forcing it as like a as
So it's not like that.
yeah. It's
But
just
I mean, all right, so
it's
humor me with
forcing
MOBAs
a
then, right?
circle into
MOBAs,
like a
there can
square
be-
thing or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it's calling them sports attached all this like social cachet to, and they don't apply in the same way. So all it means is that we just have these endless discussions about, you know, the legitimacy of a thing that is, it's a thing that people find entertaining. That's what it is.
What's weird to me is like that people get so caught up on the words of sports. Like why is, I mean, the fact that there's an E in front of it is just like, I feel that's the worst thing. Calling, if they were just sports and people like they're sports, people would be upset about that, obviously. But like, why are they not sports? What is a sport?
And that's where we get into a huge problem. And
Is
the
chess a
fact
sport?
that- exactly.
I mean, that's the thing, is that, you know, I play chess. I love chess. Like and I've said before many times, chess is my favorite game. Like, I love chess more than any video game. Chess is, according to the Olympic Committee, a sport. But that's stupid. Chess isn't a sport. You know what I mean? And like, here's the thing that we have to remember, you know, when we're trying to define things, is that the way Colin Cowherd went about it is, and we talked about this again on Colin and Greg Live, is that he was completely rude and disrespectful with what he was saying, how he was delivering what he was saying. It was totally improper. There's an incredible, and I've learned it over the years, an incredible amount of crossover between the audience that likes what traditional sporting events and video games. And I am one of those people. So I don't like hearing someone disparage someone for playing a game or calling your parents' basement. All that. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? You don't have to disparage these people because they're doing something that you don't understand, which is really what the problem is. Now, in terms of definitions, to me, a sport is basically something that's athletic, right? And so people were asking me, like, is golf a sport? And I'm like, I don't really know. Is bowling a sport? I don't really know if it's a sport or not. Hunting, racing a car? No. Here's the other, but this is why there's different degrees and different gray areas, because it doesn't disparage what it is.
Yeah.
You have to have incredible talent to play golf. You have to have incredible talent to play bowl at a high level. And you have to have incredible talent to play League of Legends at a high level. You know what I mean? So just because there's an argument about whether it's a sport or not, Colin Cowherd crossed the line because what he was basically saying was like, this shit is illegitimate. And my whole argument is no. It's just as legitimate to shoot a puck in a net as it is to, lead your team to victory in a MOBA. Not one is not better than the other. It's just to say, like, how do we categorize that?
Yeah.
And I think that we have to look at a sport as something that is physically grueling. Soccer is a sport. Hockey is a sport. There are proper definitions of sports, obviously.
Well, so yeah, the proper definition, according to Merriam-Webster, is a contest or game in which people do certain physical activities according to a specific set of rules and compete against each other. So the thing there is the physical activity.
Sure.
But then they go on to use examples such as hunting, fishing. It's
No.
I mean, hunting and fishing. Yes, there is physical
different
stuff
levels
in that,
of
but
physicality.
there's still physical stuff in using a controller.
Well, there's a physical thing with literally
physical.
everything, unless you're like sitting in a box.
So it's like
just not breathing.
But I feel like the physical
That's
thing
not a
is the
sport.
one weird question there. But like besides that, if you just read it, a contest or game in which people do activities according to a specific set of rules and compete against each other.
I guess the way to like form it is if you take out the competitive nature of it. Like a sport is something that there is a professional part of and there's also an amateur part of. I can go out and play soccer outside with my friends. Do I consider sitting down and playing Uncharted playing a sport? No.
But that's the thing though, is there traditional sports that you can do at non-competitively similar to Uncharted? You get what I'm saying? Like, so because there's
like shooting hoops in your driveway.
Batting practice.
Bowling.
Bowling. You bowl. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point in the sense that
bowling. That's a good example.
There's an interesting point in the sense that it's just one of those things about how we define words and like what things mean. And again, it's not a disparaging comment because again, being good at League of Legends takes as much talent, just a different amount of talent than being good at golfing or being good at basketball or something like that. That's just a different rule set. And in terms of the physical nature, there is stamina and agility necessary to play a shooter properly or to do all, to use a mouse and a keyboard. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I just think that like we have an idea of what sports are, and a sport like when we talk about the big four in the United States: baseball, hockey, basketball, and football. Like those are physical things, like that's and this is where I kind of differentiate between maybe what I play as chess, even though people consider it a sport, and what I did as a hockey player when I played hockey. When I played hockey, I was an athlete. I worked out and I was sweating and all those kinds of things. When I play chess, I'm using my mind. You know what I mean? And I'm playing a game, and I feel like playing a video game is more of a mind game than anything else. It's something that you have to use your intelligence in. Now, that's not to say you're not using your intelligence when you play football. Football, I think, is one of the smartest games in the world, and I'm talking about American football.
Not that dummy ass.
Sorry about it. I've been here for a year and a half. I'm good with it's football. Got it.
So it's just a level of degrees. I think that like this is all erupting because of the way he positioned himself. And I think that that's the unnecessary thing. And a friend of the show, Total Biscuit, put up a video just a day or two ago where he really, I think, explained it in very base terms, which is to say, like, no one in esports and he knows much better than I do as being a PC-centric guy, and that's where kind of esports is happening. He was saying, like, no one in esports is really claiming this is a real sport. And who cares? And that was the bigger thing. And of course, I'm reducing his video of 10 or 15 minutes to something more bite-sized. But his whole argument was like, who cares? Like, ESPN is entertainment and sports. I mean, that's in the name. And they put on things like poker and the spelling bee.
Yeah.
So like, why is it a big deal if they're putting on video games? You just want to disparage it because you don't understand it, and I get that. I think that something like League of Legends is incomprehensible, but that's me. And I play video games and I'm in the gaming industry. So I can only imagine what someone else watching it feels like that has no idea. But that doesn't mean it's wrong or it's bad.
Yeah.
And ESPN has a long history. In the 90s, I was watching the spelling bee on ESPN. So it's like, and it's fun. I like watching the spelling bee. There's just nothing wrong with it. And so I think Total Biscuit had a really good point when he was like, it doesn't matter. Like, ESPN's going where the money is. This is not an altruistic pursuit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They want to make money, and people are playing video games competitively. Do we have to figure out?
And people are watching it.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
And they're getting new advertising revenues. They're getting new, metrics in terms of the people that are watching it. Maybe non-traditional fans that don't watch ESPN. I watch ESPN every day, but there are people I'm sure watching the Heroes of the Storm on there that have never turned on ESPN in their lives, and that's a new demographic. So this all makes sense. It's just a matter of like, well, what are esports? I don't know. I agree with Danny. What Danny was saying. It should have never been called a sport to begin with because it is not a sport in the traditional sense. Do we want to expand the definition of it? Sure. And do we want to include all those things? Fine. But that's not, in my mind, in my opinion, very respectfully, I do not think that it's a sport.
See, I don't know. I disagree with that just because I think that like you're defining it by like the big four, but it's like sports also include a lot of the other ones too. Like sports does include all these other things.
And that's where it gets fishy though, because Colin's saying that like, and I'm with him, right? The fact that I don't look at esports as sports, but but I don't look at bowling as a sport, spelling bee as a sport, but they're being lumped in here too. So that's the thing. I think the definition's already broken and weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think there is an easy way to box any of this up. The fact of the matter is when you talk about it, is there a better network for any kind of competitive gaming to be on than ESPN? No.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what
that's
I mean?
a good way to put it.
When I heard it, I was like, oh man, what a perfect fit.
Yeah, the ways in which competitive games and traditional sports are the most alike is in how they're broadcasted, which is the weirdest thing about this, is that like no wonder he was mouthing off about how they had commentators and they were like mimicking what it's like when we commentate on real sports and stuff like that. It's like, well, yeah, I guess in a way those games have sort of lended themselves, like the path that has been trodden down already, laid by sports broadcasting, is where these games went when they decided to like try and broadcast them to a wider audience. So like in that way, it perfectly fits the ESPN mold. Like it could not be a better place for them to expand. Whether or not it's a sport, like TB said,
Yeah.
But it's the same argument we always have on the internet, right? Whether it be this or console wars or whatever, the whole people are riled up, right? Because now somebody's putting down something they love and somebody doesn't understand it. Not even, I mean, we're getting hung up on the ESPN guy, but I mean, like, there were so many tweets that night, right? They got, I saw in wrap-up articles the next day, it was like, what the fuck's this nerd shit doing on ESPN? You know what I mean? Like, and then it just immediately, like, there's a dividing line of like, well, I don't even understand what a fucking MOBA is, but I'll tell you what, you are wrong, sir, and video games are up and coming, and they're bigger than movies, and it's like things, your ire starts to raise on that to regardless, let alone, it's just like,
Yeah, it's just a way of positioning the way you speak about things, like, and I think that was the bigger thing than the point he was making. I mean, if he wants to quit ESPN, because no one's gonna make it. Colin Cowherd doesn't know anything about video games, so like, why would they? That was the confusing thing. He wasn't saying that he's quitting ESPN because they're covering. He's like, if I was ever asked to cover it, I would quit. And it's like, why would they ever do that? Like, you don't know anything about it. Like, they're gonna find the people that were commentating that are the people that would do it. You know what I mean? So like, you don't have to be. It seemed to me that he felt isolated in some strange way about. This is kind of a movement on ESPN to maybe get more video games, and it's not. He's an older man now, and he's not into it. I mean, but he's entitled to his opinion. I just think you should position it a little more politely and a little less rudely, because again, I'll say it like, as someone who watches hockey compulsively, as someone who has not missed a Jets game in years, like, and watches literally 5 or 6 football games a week when it went during football season, I'm quite offended for my fellow gaming brethren when I hear someone in sports that's well respected talk about us like that, because I'm one of them. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of shit that really bothers me, because again, there's plenty of crossover between sports and games, and I see it every day on Twitter when I tweet about hockey or I tweet about football or whatever it is. So
see it on the commercials during games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Call of Duty commercial and Assassin's Creed commercial, PS4 commercials were on during football all the time.
UFC's got Assassin's Creed stuff on it all over.
So that really bummed me out, because I'm like, man, what a disrespectful thing to do. But you know what? Like many things, there's 2 different topics here, and one of them is esports a sport, and that's like a different topic, because that wasn't even what this was. I don't think this was more him being like, this shit sucks and this shit doesn't belong. And to that I say, that's bullshit. The people are speaking clearly, loud and clear. They sell out arenas and fucking coliseums all over the world, and they play these games, and they deserve a respect. And that's the way I'm coming forward with it. I'm like, just because I don't think your sport, your competition is a sport, doesn't mean I disrespect you. I just look at sports as something that is physically grueling, which this isn't, any more than when I sit down at a chessboard across from someone, I'm not breaking a sweat, and therefore it is not it's me playing a game. And that doesn't mean that chess is worse or better than football, and it doesn't mean League of Legends is better or worse than baseball. And that's the way we can't have these black and white arguments. That's the problem. And I think the Total Biscuits point, who gives a flying fuck? If this is what you like, I think Greg made the point when we were talking about it a day or two ago, which was, we want games to be called art because we want them to be taken seriously. And we get into these huge arguments. Are games art or games art? Like, who fucking cares? Do you like games or don't you like games? And if games are art to you, then games are art to you. And if League of Legends is a sport to you, then God bless you. League of Legends is a sport to you. That's...
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to have these like systemic arguments over definitions. We can just all have our own if we really want to. I would just prefer that we all had a unified definition.
That'd be nice. But now, real quick too, the thing about it is, if you're super offended about how this ESPN guy handled himself and everything he did, remember this next time you go to talk shit about sports. This is easy because it's the sports, which is this big mainstream popular thing, picking on video games. But I see it flipped all the time where it's Super Bowl or playoffs, and all of my video game friends are like, "Oh, sports ball! Can't wait to stay off Twitter." Shut the fuck up. I'm enjoying that. I don't need to hear you talk shit about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry you don't enjoy it. I'm sorry.
You're gonna get shot.
You are talking shit, which is going to lead to you being shot.
That's how this shit happens.
Fuck.
All right, guys.
And I worked in radio for years and years and years, and this is just like number one. This is Howard Stern. You just rile up controversy. People say your name. Next time.
Now a lot of people know this.
Now a lot of people know this guy's name. They'll forget what the thing was about.
Yeah, man, that sucks that his name's Coward.
And the one thing I want to point out real quick, and another reason why, what would Colin Coward think of Colin and Greg Live if he saw it, right? Like, Colin and Greg Live came out of my mind because I am obsessed with Pardon the Interruption and Mike and Mike. I took something out of the sports world and made it a video game thing, and it works. And we were really one of the first people to do it, if not the first people to do it. And I was inspired by sports. So why can't there be some cross-pollination and some love between the two things? And like you were saying with the commentation of League of Legends or with Heroes of the Storm or whatever, is being commentated as if it was a soccer match, as if it was a hockey game, with the same excitement and verbiage and all these kinds of things. There's a lot to be learned from these different things. We learned it firsthand with Colin and Greg Live. This is a sports show about games, or a political show about games. And so we took something from another environment, another ecosystem, and made it our own. And now these guys are doing it with that too. So he can be a relic of the past if he wants to be. He's tilting against fucking windmills because it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. And that's well, you have to kind of walk away from it. Be mad if you want. I mean, that's more power to you. Everyone's mad on the internet, but but if it's
or just don't,
or just move on. And play your games and enjoy it in spite of him. Revenge is best served, Tim, when you're having a good time and you're not letting other people bother you.
As the old saying goes.
Well, no, best served cold, which is not the way I feel at all. You could feel that way. Or revenge is living well.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that revenge is really something that, like, if you want to have revenge on this guy or, like, get it back at him, go about your business.
Yeah.
And just
ignore him.
Do you.
You know what I mean?
There you go.
Because someone like that, as we said, loves the controversy, loves being talked about, is not going to suffer. His viewership is not going to suffer. He's speaking to his people.
There you go.